Hey everyone, and happy Thursday. Welcome back to the Ghost Biker Garage. I hope everyone is doing well and having a great week so far. I know it's been great here. It's actually been a very, very busy week. If some of you tuned in earlier, you may have seen the live stream that I was on with the UK's Portal to the Paranormal. We had an absolute blast, met some great folks, and had a great time talking about some of the past episodes and some of the stuff that's coming up with Ghost Biker Explorations this year. Tonight, I have a very special guest, and I'm not going to waste any time getting into the interview because we've got a whole lot to talk about, some great topics. I know some that a lot of you have actually personally asked me about, and so we're going to hopefully cover some of those. We've got a lot of folks on right now. I want to say hello to Michelle, Matthew, Beth Allen, Peppy Purple Eyes. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you don't mind, go ahead and post your questions and comments over here, and we'll pull them up onto the live stream. And hopefully Mella can answer your questions. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce tonight's guest. Honestly, I was reading her background and speaking with her and everything earlier, and I'm very impressed. And I think you guys will be too. She is an empathic, intuitive psychic, spiritual guide, sacred jewelry artisan, energetic healer, workshop facilitator, and spiritual coach focusing on healing the mind, body, and spirit. She considers herself a modern spiritual alchemist, assisting her clients in learning how to transmute negative habits, thoughts, and beliefs into something positive and empowering. I'm going to actually go ahead and bring her on because she has a whole lot that she can share, and I won't even be able to do it justice. So everyone, please welcome my guest, Mela Borawski.
Hi.
Hey, Mela, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on. I was on Mella's podcast, Belle, Book, and Candle, a couple months ago, and that's actually how I met her and learned about her love of storytelling. Her background is, I'm going to go ahead and let her tell you her background and how she got started. We won't, like I said, I've got a lot of topics and I don't want to jump around. So
I am the absolute epitome of eclectic. I do a lot of different things. As far as storytelling, I've been a storyteller since I was a child. And I started teaching in my summers. I'd go into the inner city and I would teach in the inner city. And it just went from there. I love teaching. I love telling stories. And so later on in life, I became a docent at the South Carolina State Museum, and I was able to teach there as well. And that's where I was able to do ghost tales as well.
Oh, very cool. And so I'm very intrigued about that because when you and I talked before, you shared a little bit of those stories, but I know you've got a lot more than what you shared with me. Can you tell us about the museum as well as some of the experiences you had there?
Yeah, so the museum in Columbia, South Carolina was actually an old cotton mill. And so before it became a museum, it was a cotton duck mill, very thick cotton fabric. And there was a worker there at some point, no one's quite sure when, but he was killed in the elevator. Some say that he got his head cut off, that he thought he was in one place and he was in the wrong place. Regardless, he has been there even before it became a museum as a ghost. He's very well documented. You can look up Bubba the Ghost, South Carolina State Museum. If you Google that, you will find all sorts of things, and you'll even see me in a big old Victorian black mourning gown because I was interviewed a few times about it. But yeah, he has been there for so long, and there's so many stories that when I became a volunteer there, and then later I got a job there, I started hearing stories right away. And I'm a pagan minister. I clairvoyant, all the intuitive, empath. So I'm very sensitive to that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So when I would go in that area, I would feel that there was something interesting going on. But it wasn't really until I kind of pushed the envelope and said, hey, we got to do ghost tours here. We have a ghost. Let's do ghost tours. And so I was tasked with figuring out all the South Carolina ghost tales that we wanted to tell, training the people who would come and do it with me. And as I was writing this, at my desk down a hall with no one else, the volunteer center has no other offices around, I didn't have Bubba in the list yet. I had all these wonderful legends and tales. And there was a knock on my desk, my wooden desk, so hard that it moved my desk. There was no one around. I looked around the corner, nobody. And I just said, all right, Bubba, I'm putting you in. I promise I'm putting you in. I just took it as him. And then after that, I think, I've had several experiences with him, but I actually saw him once. Most people just experience him. They feel a hand. Security guards will have lights come on and off. But when I was in the costume, I'm a costumed interpreter as well. And I was standing up in the area, and I guess they thought I was just part of everything because there's two ghosts there actually. But I was standing there at the old country store. I looked over and he appeared in the Victorian mourning area. Overalls, black and white check shirt. I couldn't really tell if there was a head or not. It was very fuzzy, but I saw that. He walked and I thought someone's playing a trick on me because I do ghost tours. So I ran after him around the corner. There was absolutely nobody on that fourth floor. And so I came back around and I put my back against the wall and I'm just going, okay, I just saw Bubba. What's going on here? And it was only about 15 minutes later, I look into the store, it was a real store in rural South Carolina, and they packaged everything up, brought it to the museum, and built it again. So I looked inside there, and our second ghost was standing in there behind one of the counters, just looking at the material. And I call her the Lady in Black. There's not a name for her. She hasn't been there as long, but she was there in full mourning attire, standing behind the counter. My shift was up then. I didn't care if it really was, but it was up then. And then so I was gone. I left after that. I was like, thank you for sharing that with me, but now it's time for me to go back to my office.
So were they very receptive in the beginning to, because some places aren't always as open to paranormal tours. Others, they really welcome it. Was this location welcoming of the idea, or did it take a little persuasion?
I believe they had ghost tours sometime in the past. It's been a museum, I think, since the 80s. But they hadn't in a while. And I go on so many ghost tours, I knew it would really be something that the people would love. So there wasn't a whole lot of resistance because I think I was very passionate about it. And I think people understood that this was going to be a great thing. And in actuality, I would do them every Tuesday night in October. And I would sometimes have to have 2 and 3 docents to give the tours because we would have upwards of 80 people show up at night.
Wow. That's wonderful. Wow. Yeah. And so you all would just do them during the month of October?
Just during the month of October. And people would come back. That would be their tradition. And every year they would come back to the ghost tours, or they would come back the next week and bring friends. So it was a wonderful thing. Of course, with COVID, we weren't able to do it last year, but we did it for many years.
Oh, very cool. Hopefully this year you all be able to open back up and be business as usual come this October, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that missed not being able to do it last year.
Yeah.
Do you think that the reason that you had, I guess, such a positive experience with the spirits as far as them showing themselves and that sort of thing is that they knew you were going to tell their story and knew that you were there for them?
I think so, because I'm very respectful. And even though as a pagan minister, one of the things that I do get called to do is to go into people's homes, go on their land and clear entities and spirits. In this case, it was more of a respectful relationship. Bubba wasn't hurting anything. The Lady in Black's not hurting anything. And so I would talk all the time. Every time I got on the elevator, if I was alone, I would talk to Bubba and say, "Hey, Bubba, you're famous. People can Google you and just know all this information." And so I think that as time passed, because of that relationship and going on this tour and really honoring the stories of other people, because people would come to me and say, "Oh, I worked here at such and such a time and I had this experience." And so it was all very honoring. And the more I honored those spirits, the more experiences I had with them.
Absolutely. And I agree wholeheartedly with that, because I know myself, Soul Sisters Paranormal, that's another team that comes to mind. You know, we go into these locations with that mindset, going with nothing but respect and honoring these spirits rather than asking them to perform or what have you. And I think that we've actually been really blessed with activity because of that, because they know we're going to try to tell the story and try to tell it accurately, really be their voice.
Yeah.
And I can really tell that from speaking with you, that there is such a sense of respect with that. I know we had a really nice comment here from Beth Allen that I had just pulled up, talking about it's so hard to maintain historical locations. The paranormal tours really help keep these important pieces of history standing. And
yeah, I agree.
That's so true. So do you feel that the spirits there really kind of got to know you yourself? And
I think so. Sometimes a little too close for comfort. I had thought one time, it was in the summer, I thought, "Oh, let me put an EVP app on my phone." And so I go up there, I'm walking through because, like I said, I work there. So I walk through a lot. So I have this EVP app on my phone, and I go over. Next to the country store is a hearse. That's where the lady in black is often seen. It's that whole area. And I'm just talking and I'm chatting like I always do. Just, "Hey, Bubba, I hope you're doing great. You know, this October, we're going to have a great amount of people here for you." And then I thought, you know, there's all the static, and I thought I heard a man's voice. And so just in my regular chatter, I just said, I can't understand you. All the static went away, and a man's voice said, "You're not listening." And then the static came back.
Wow. And you know, I think that is actually a very true statement. You know, a lot of people will say, you know, why does activity only happen at this time or in this location? I think it happens more often than we think. People just aren't listening.
Yeah.
And
I agree with that. Yeah.
You heard it yourself straight from Bubba.
Yes. Yeah, he was right after me too. There was no pause or anything. "I can't hear you. I don't understand you. You're not listening." In a very particular man's voice. Yeah.
I was going to ask if some of these spirits that have been captured there, if you can kind of get a certain dialect, or if they all sort of sound similar from some of the. Well, actually, let me put it this way. Has the location, the museum, been investigated?
I believe that they have had a couple of teams that have come. I know that one of the times that I did the ghost tours, there was a group that was there, and often they would set up out in the lobby. So yes, I believe it has, and we've had people write stories about it. So I don't know if it's been thoroughly spend the whole night there type of thing. One interesting thing that happened, though, is there was a little girl who would come to my ghost tours. And then she also would come to other museum events. There was a time where you could spend the night in the museum. She was a little girl, too. I mean, not older than 7, I would say. And she spent the night in the museum, and I was there to teach the next day. So I was there in the morning, and she saw me, and she ran up to me, and her mama came, and she said, "I saw Bubba. I woke up in the middle of the night, and there was Bubba standing there." And she wasn't scared or anything. She was fascinated by all this. I'm pretty sure she was a highly sensitive child. She was just so young, but she was so excited because she spent the night and Bubba was right there when she opened up her eyes, and she said she just went back to sleep because she wasn't afraid of him.
Oh, that's very cool. And actually a great testament, because, you know, there's a lot of investigators that if they experience that would not be so calm.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about, you had mentioned, that you're a reverend and that, your background, that sort of thing. Have you, you wouldn't consider yourself a paranormal investigator or ghost hunter, would you?
No, I'm not a paranormal investigator. I'm not a medium. Not any of those things. Not that they're connected, but
Right.
I just have. I'm very sensitive, and I
Mm-hmm.
experience the energy of places, and I see spirits, and I've had just different circumstances around me since I was a child. I do consider myself a witch. That's why my podcast
Mm-hmm.
is a witchy podcast. I
Mm-hmm.
haven't always called myself that. That was something that I had to really come to terms with because it has such a negative connotation. But
Yeah.
it just really is the best word to describe what I am now. And with that, you don't have to be a witch, you don't have to be pagan to have spiritual
Mm-hmm.
gifts of that sort. And I've just since I was young, even though it was squashed, I was told that it was demonic. I was told that I shouldn't be doing these things. Really trained that I needed to shut off that part of myself. So it's very freeing to now
Mm-hmm.
not have that fear, not be afraid that these things are going to harm me, and just to be able to have that honor and respect for the spiritual world. Because just because we can't see it, just because
Mm-hmm.
everyone can't experience it, does not mean it's not there.
That's exactly true. And I think, are you originally from the South Carolina area, or at least from the South?
Yes, from the South. I've been in South Carolina for a good long time, since third grade, and I'm 49. I was born in
Gotcha.
Florida, but yeah, pretty much
Okay.
raised here.
And still the South, and I know that, it's always been interesting to me to talk to different folks that, for anyone that doesn't know, I'm in the East Tennessee area. And it's always been interesting to talk to different folks in this area, because you'll have people who are my age. I'm getting ready to turn 41, who will say their parents knew about these gifts that they had, or knew about the gifts that their parents had,
Mm.
but they didn't talk about it. And it
Hmm.
always seemed like it was a great grandmother or great great grandmother that was able to see things or able to experience things. And then it just seemed like things got kind of silent for a while. And then someone, a couple generations on down, finds out that they've either got these gifts, or by anything more, has an interest in it,
Hmm.
and they've kind of lost that connection. Maybe they weren't able to ask the questions to learn more about it because that family member's passed on. But that seems to be a common theme that I've found here in the South.
Hmm. I think one of the things that comes from, if you think about the generations that have lost that ability, that's when television and movies and all these things that are inundating us with all these really scary scary horror things that have to do with witches and gifts and seeing
Mhm.
spirits and everything like that. And our great grandparents didn't have that clutter.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. I mean, people spent time sitting out on the porch, or just
Yeah.
spent time sitting and talking, telling these stories. And, that's how I really got my start, was my grandmother's storytelling, and my dad as well. And if we weren't sitting on the porch hearing these stories, then we were out in, my dad's old VW Beetle, riding these back roads, and him sharing the stories of, olden days. And so, I know a lot of the folks who watch my show, they're big into storytelling. And so I think that, that's something that, I know part of one of your podcasts, you actually tell some of the ghostly stories of your area, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I really love Southern legends and tales, but of course, being in South Carolina, being at the South Carolina State Museum, I did focus in on the South Carolina stories.
Very cool. I'm actually going on right now and sharing the link to, I'm going to put it down here and pull it up on the screen. Uh, to your podcast, Belle Book and Candle. And I encourage everyone to definitely check that out. I know that I fell in love with it whenever I heard it for the first time, and she's had some really great guests. I know some of the topics that you guys have covered have been very interesting, and I know you had DC O'Rourke on not too long ago. He's actually going to be on here in April.
Oh, awesome.
Another great storyteller, you know. And so, and then just like I said, some of the topics that you guys cover on there as well are very, very interesting that I think people would enjoy. And so I will actually put that in the comments here once we repost this for people to be able to have a live link to.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm all about wellness. So even in my spiritual practice and even on the podcast, I'm mixing in wellness because that's kind of that's my purpose here on earth, is to tell my story and help people find some type of wellness.
Well, let's talk about that some more then, because that's one of the things, you know, when I was listening to the podcast that I was on of yours, I heard where you had mixed in some of that. And then also, like I said, just reviewing your background, you know, now more than ever, I think this is so important, especially with, you know, with the pandemic and people being quarantined and everything, wellness. And I'm not even really talking about the physical side of it as much as I am from the mental and the emotional side. And so now that's definitely more important than ever. So if you could talk some about your background in that and, you know, some of the things that you know, you talk about on your show and stuff, that would be great.
Yeah. So I have a business called 3 Rays of Light, and through 3 Rays of Light, I do spiritual coaching and I do hypnosis. I do past life regression. Everything that I do is based on wellness of mind, body, and spirit. So in some way, they're all linked. You can't just focus on one. You really have to focus on all of them. So I went to school to become a certified hypnotherapist and integrative healing arts practitioner. I use everything from oracle cards to auriculotherapy, which is kind of like acupressure on the ear, and coaching and guidance, and my clairvoyance, just hypnosis, guided meditation, so many different things to try and just find out what the person really needs. Because some people come to me because they want to develop their spiritual gifts. Some people come to me because they have absolutely no reason to live. They are at the end of their rope and they don't even know what to do next. So I kind of cover a broad range of things. Some people come to me to quit smoking, you know, from various things, and that's part of wellness as well. So I love being able to have so many different modalities to help people.
Yes. And I mean, and that's the most important thing is that they all do link. Something that you had mentioned in that you mentioned spiritual gifts. And I know I saw a question just a little bit earlier. Let's see. Well, while I'm looking for that, we'll okay. So Peppy Purple Eyes asks, how does one become a stronger empath, or should I say, become more in tune with one's gift?
That is a popular question that people ask. Yeah. That's important. To become a stronger empath is really, it works into building your intuition, because an empath has that intuition that everyone is gifted with, but it's having to do with emotions. So clear empathy is clear emotions. And to build that up even more, to really feel that, you have to experience it. You can't silence it. You can't hold on to shame that other people have made you feel about being emotional. And also, one thing to really help with building that is to learn to determine whether the emotions are yours or they're coming from outside. That is something that is extremely important for all empaths, especially if you want to actually build that spiritual gift and get better at it, because you should be able to know almost right away if you are feeling an emotion of anger. You should be able to be so in tune with your body to say, wait a minute, I have no reason to be angry. This is coming from outside of me. If that makes sense.
Exactly. It does. It does. And so I know one of the topics that you often speak about is how can an empath protect themselves?
Yeah, there's several ways that I like to tell people to protect themselves. One thing that I think is really important for empaths to realize is to become aware of their aura. Our aura as an empath, and as anyone really, but especially for an empath, it extends 5 to 6 feet on either side of us, above us, around us. So think about having 12 feet of yourself, your most authentic self, and you walk into a music festival or you walk into a grocery store. If you are 12 feet wide, you're going to be running into everybody else's energy, everybody's anger, everyone's excitement. So one of the things to protect yourself is to learn to pull that aura in. And it's just a matter of choosing to do that, because when you don't think about it, when you're not even aware, because a lot of empaths that I speak to, they're not even aware that their aura is usually that huge. And so you just, before you walk into a place, you just kind of visualize it coming in. And I will sometimes pull it all the way right next to me. Because if you think about walking through a muddy yard, I have goats and chickens. If I go out there and I'm not protected, I'm going to get mud all over me. And so when you go out in the world, especially as an empath, you are getting everybody's emotional debris or emotional mud on you if you're not pulling yourself in. So that's just as simple as a visualization of just being aware, setting intention, and saying, okay, I'm going to pull myself in a little bit so that I'm not hitting everybody with my 12-foot aura. Another thing that's very practical is crystals. You know, people laugh about crystals and things like that, but crystals have energy. Everything has energy. And so I will use black tourmaline, jet. I love jet, obsidian. So black as a color is very protective, and it's very protective for an empath as well. So that's another way to protect, is to actually have things outside of yourself that you tuck in your pocket. Wear as an earring, wear in a necklace, bracelet, whatever you want to do. I tuck mine into my bra sometimes. I've got one in there right now, jet. And that's just a place. It's just something you have on your body that is almost like a little battery that helps boost that protection around you. Grounding is important. People are not grounded right now. They are so lost. They're so just floating around. They're not grounded. One of the easiest ways that you can ground is to walk outside on the earth with your bare feet and just send any of that excess emotions and energy down into the ground. That's so important for an empath. And that has to do with protection as well. Because if you just leave all that debris on you, it's going to get heavier and heavier. That's why so many empaths, including myself in my younger years, that's why we have so many illnesses and problems and mental disorders, because we are carrying the weight of the world, basically, because our aura is picking up everything. We're covered in emotional mud. I mean, why would we not be so weighed down? So we have to clean up our aura, ground ourselves, protect ourselves. And water is also great for empaths. So drinking a lot of water every day, and that's good for a lot of different things. And I can't say enough about visualization. You don't have to be this great guided meditation kind of person, but when you wake up in the morning and you set your feet on the ground, you're going to brush your teeth, I hope. You're going to get dressed. You're going to do all these things. Why not just take a minute to close your eyes and visualize a protective bubble around yourself. And that's just a very simple way. Tuck your crystals in, put it in your pocket, do your bubble, make sure that you're grounding every day, pull your aura in when you need to, and really take care of yourself, and so that you're not carrying this emotional debris from every single person that you're running into. And right now, the emotion that's in the world is not just from people, it's from the entire world. The sadness, the anger, the fear. It is very heavy right now. So we have to really take care of ourselves. You're very
Sorry,
welcome.
that froze for just a moment. I don't know. I guess you saw Peppy's answer. So thank you so much, Mella. I know we've had some really great comments here from different people who you hit the nail on the head. And, you know, one thing you had mentioned, you know, the visualization, I know that's something that I struggle with anxiety. And so that's something that I will couple along with breathing exercises, as well as I'm also one that I try to every day. I try to go out and walk barefoot outside and also look at the sky to try and watch a sunset. And so those are definitely, you know, things that I like to practice. And so, again, thank you for that information. Beth talks about there's many people who need help developing their gifts, and it can be very scary. It's wonderful, Mella, that you provide a place with no judgment for help. And can you speak to any of the other spiritual gifts? I know we talked about empaths. If you could speak to some of the others, because I know we've also had people ask about those as well.
Yeah, I'm actually teaching a course on spiritual gifts, how to claim them, what the different ones are. And that's going to be in May. It'll be on my 3 Rays of Light page on Facebook. But there are over 30 spiritual gifts. And if you really want to break it down, there's way more than that. You've got the clairs. Everyone knows about the clairs. You've got the ones that are spoken about in church, like speaking in tongues and all that sort of thing. The clairs are things that I think people get really scared about. I mean, if you have clairaudience and you hear from your spirit guides, from the angels, from the spirits around, if you hear a voice, people are going to think you're crazy. And people thought I was crazy. I was in the mental hospital twice. My story is not all rainbows and butterflies. It took me a long time to get through my depression and stifling my gifts to get to where I am now. That's why I do this, is because I was told that this was not the way to go. I was told that this was something that was evil, bad. It's very scary. And so I had to struggle through that. And that's why I want to help people with that. And so, yeah, hearing things, seeing things. I'm clairvoyant. Anytime I close my eyes, I start seeing visions. So for me, that is very scary. It's very scary as a child, and it can be scary now. But I don't want to live in fear with my gifts anymore. They're gifts. They're not supposed to be curses, but a lot of the gifts, actually, people consider them curses. So it's good to find out what they are, how to develop them, how to use them, how to set boundaries. Boundaries are good for all spiritual gifts, including clair empathy or being an empath. But clairaudience is clear hearing, so that's when you actually hear. Claircognizance is one that people talk about. That's just knowing. You just know something. There's no proof. You haven't done the research. You just know this is the way it's done. Clairalience, that's scent. So, if you're doing an investigation and you walk into a home and you are smelling chocolate chip cookies baking and there is no electricity in the place that you're in, that's clairalience. That is being able to smell the spiritual world. Clairtangency, that's one that I really love. And that's like psychometry. So you touch something, and when you physically touch it, you're able to have other gifts. You might see things. You might just know things about it. I use this when I go to thrift stores. If I touch an item, no matter how much I want it, if I get a bad emotion from it, if I get a flicker of something that, I don't know about this, I do not buy it. And that's that clairtangency. But you've also got the spiritual gift of teaching, of knowledge. There's a spiritual gift called research. Just because you are really great at researching things doesn't mean that you necessarily are a great teacher, but you might be able to combine those. So there are a lot of gifts: mediumship, channeling. I personally, and I don't have this on my list, but I tell people this all the time, I personally think being a hairdresser is a spiritual gift. If you think about it, you've got the gift of creativity in there. You've got that holding space and just being there for someone. So you have to kind of open your mind a little bit to thinking about what spiritual gifts are. A spiritual gift is something that you are using to benefit the community in some way, or benefit your personal community. So it's more than just a talent that you may have. A talent might be a gift, but it's something that you're using to really benefit your community.
Absolutely. And that's a great way to explain that, because a lot of people might not necessarily think of it in that way or have their eyes open to think of some of those things, because, I mean, it really is something special to be able to see something, you know, like as an artist or a musician, even to be able to write music, draw pictures, do these things, see something before it's finished, you know, a woodworker, if you will. It really is, these really are spiritual gifts. For sure. Let's see, I'm looking through here just to make sure I didn't miss any comments. Here was one I wanted to pull up. This was to kind of circle back where we were a few minutes ago. Matthew brings up a good point, talking about how a lot of the time we don't talk to our elders, and a lot of these stories and, you know, information about, you know, even talking about spiritual gifts and stuff. If we don't take that time to talk about some of these things with our elders, those stories and the information that we're looking for may end up, unfortunately, dying with them. And it's definitely something that, you know, I regret. You know, I spent a lot of time with my grandmother, and, you know, I wish that she passed away when I was 23, and I wish I could just have an afternoon to ask her about some of the things that she had told me about, that I took it in, but I wish I understood things more back when we were talking, you know.
My grandmother used to tell me all sorts of stories. She's from the mountains of Georgia, Appalachia, and she would tell me all sorts of stories of haints and wisdom and all root doctors and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, you know, everything that she did. And this is something that I'm actually researching more now, because, you know, everything that she did, my dad did everything from when they would plant their garden, you know, they went by the signs, and, you know, and then knowing the multiple winters. You know, here in Tennessee, we have 3 winters, you know, or 4, I believe. And, you know, these different things, being able to do your planting based on the frost and just all of that information, I really wish that I understood it more now. And so I'm actually having to go back and talk to different people and actually consult books, because I remember my grandmother and my dad talking about that, but neither of them are here now to really explain it in more detail. And so that just always fascinated me.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people have what is called soft addictions. And one of the major soft addictions is the cell phone. And so when your face is in the cell phone, you're not going to hear the stories. You're not going to be able to just sit in a rocking chair and hear grandma tell about their life or how they did these things. I mean, people can't even eat a meal together without having their cell phones in front of them. People can't go to holding up their cell phone to videotape it. I mean, it's the world is on the phone so much. So I challenge everyone, to have a time where you're not in your cell phone. And we recognize what the elders and what other people have to say. But if you are always on your phone, you can't even talk to your partner. You're not even getting to know your children. So that's something that don't use your cell phones when you're eating, or have a basket that you put your cell phones in at night and just chat with people. We don't do that anymore.
You're absolutely right about that. And I mean, I'm a big concert goer, and I can't tell you how many of them are, watching the concert through the screen of their phone.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm guilty for recording a couple songs and that sort of thing when I'm there, just to capture that moment. But there's nothing like being there. And it's kind of crazy because sometimes I'll be doing something and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to put my phone away and just be in that moment. And I feel like I'm doing something good. But in my mind, it's like, why does it feel like you're doing something good when you're really doing it the way it should be? You feel like you've accomplished something. That's right. And I am by far not addicted to my phone. I'm a big unplugger, but it is crazy how the mindset, and honestly, I'm thankful I didn't get a cell phone until I was 23 years old. And so I'm thankful that it was that late in life, when I actually got one. I do want to bring up this comment from Dr. Christy Sumner, because this is such an awesome idea. And she says, before my Nana died, we did something called StoryCorps through the Smithsonian. You sign up and you send a recorder. You talk to your elders about their lives. We talked to Nana for about 9 hours, and then you send that recorder back to the Smithsonian and they store it in the Smithsonian. My family also got a copy. Very cool way to preserve stories. And actually, that would be kind of cool if there's a link, Dr. Sumner, if you'll put that in the comments, if there's actually a link to doing that. It may just be on the Smithsonian website, but that is such a cool thing. I've seen like lists of questions to ask people and record, and I wish that I had that when my grandmother was alive.
Yeah, that's an amazing thing. When I was being trained to work in hospice, I was a hospice volunteer. When I was working on becoming a minister, that was one of the things that I did as a community service. And we were trained to get the people to talk, ask them questions, ask them what their favorite music was, play the music for them. So I think that's kind of jumping off of maybe that people know in hospice to get the stories, and Smithsonian is saying, let's have a repository of that. So I love that.
Yeah, I absolutely love that idea. I mean, because, you can't, I do have some recordings. I had a class in college, I think it was family dynamics, and they encouraged us to get as many generations that were alive. And we had 3 generations that were alive at that time. And so I have several hours of recordings from those conversations of questions we had. And it's such a treasure to have.
Wow. Yeah.
Here's the link that Dr. Sumner found. So if anyone is interested in doing that, it's called StoryCorps, and it's at storycorps.org. Amazing. Thank you, Dr. Sumner. Okay. Yeah, it looks like there's a lot of people who have had similar experiences, and that's awesome to see. Because again, I don't think we have that as much. I was looking just to see if there was anything I missed, because I have had such a whole list of questions, so many great things to talk about. Especially the spiritual gifts and the storytelling. We talked about storytelling in South Carolina, ghost tales and legends. Is there a particular one that kind of stands out that's one of your favorites?
Yeah, the one that I love to tell the most is the story of Julia Legree. Will you tell it?
Okay. If you would, I'd love that. We'll take us out. We got 15 minutes. And so if you'll share that story, and then we'll let you share again anything that you've got coming up. I know you've got some seminars and stuff, and promote your website. So if you'll share that story, and then we'll wrap it up with your promo materials, we would appreciate that.
All right. Sounds good. So in the mid 1800s, there was a young woman named Julia Legree. She was visiting her family on Edisto Island. So South Carolina is, of course, a coastal state. We have a lot of stories from that low country, is what we call it. And Julia Legree became very sick. Some say that it might have been diphtheria, but whatever it was, she fell into a very deep coma, and she never recovered from it. In fact, she was pronounced dead. And in this time, they didn't embalm, and South Carolina summers are extremely humid and hot. So you're going to put the body in the tomb as quickly as possible. So the very same day that she was pronounced dead, she was brought to the graveyard to be buried in the family crypt. Now, her family was very heartbroken when they brought her to the Presbyterian church there on Edisto Island. And because she had been sick, people were afraid to carry her body into the tomb. And her poor dad had to lift her and carry her into this tomb, lay her down, and they slid this heavy stone door onto the crypt. Well, about 15 years later, we have the Civil War. And her brother went off to the Civil War, and he came back in a pine box. So now it was time for him to be put into the family crypt. So they go to open up the Legree tomb, and as they move this heavy stone aside, the skeletal remains of Julia Legree fell down. She had been standing there. There were still pieces of her white burial gown clinging to her bones. She had not been dead. She had awakened in this tomb and had tried to get out. In fact, they saw claw marks in the back of that stone door where she had been trying to claw her way out, trying to free herself from this prison. And I mean, I cannot even imagine what the family felt like. But all they could do was bury the son, pick up the pieces of her bones, and put her back inside as well. And they did that, and they moved the stone back in front of this crypt, and they sealed it, they closed it, and the next day the heartbroken family came to this tomb, and the door was open. The stone had been moved.
Wow.
So they shut it again and came back. The stone was moved again. They put chains on it. They put locks. They bricked it up, and nothing seemed to work. That stone door was not going to stay closed. And they attempted to lock it one final time. And when they came back, the stone had been completely removed and put aside from the crypt.
Wow.
So today they've moved that door into the crypt, and I think there's a grate on it. But what they say is that Julia Legree's ghost refused to be locked into that tomb ever again. And I have actually had some people who came on my ghost tour who said they visited the Legree tomb there on Edisto Island, and that they locked their doors of their car. They came into the graveyard, and all the doors in their car got unlocked as well. Like when they came back, they could not keep their car locked. So yeah, she's not interested in being locked into that tomb again.
And probably doesn't like any locked door, anything locked on the premises.
Nothing locked around her.
Wow, that's a great story. Thank you so much. Like I said, you tell your stories beautifully and really put the people in that moment. And so thank you for sharing that. That is definitely a great story. So if you want to share too, like I said, I put some of these up there. I'm going to go ahead and re-put them up. If you want to tell us where people can find you and some of the cool things you've got coming up, and we'll take it on out from there.
Yeah, sure. So, Belle Book and Candle, that is my podcast. It's my little baby, my little witchy podcast. There's tons of really great guests that I have on there, such as yourself, who was on there, and just amazing people. I mean, I wish that I could put everything up at once, but through July, we've got a lot of amazing people that's going to be on there, a lot of different topics from mediums. I've got the Hollywood Good Witch of Hollywood that I just interviewed, and just a lot of really great things. And then on Three Rays of Light, I do a lot of teaching. I do a lot of courses, and right now they're online because of COVID. So I am doing a paganism basics course right now, which will repeat probably in May. And then I've got a course that's a 6-week course. You can go at your own pace, but I'll be actually going live on Sundays, and that's all about spiritual gifts. So going through every spiritual gift, explaining them, teaching you how to figure out which gifts you have, how to develop those gifts. We'll have times where we'll meet face-to-face and practice the different gifts. And it also includes a private session with me as well to figure out exactly what you need to develop those spiritual gifts. And we also focus on releasing any shame, because that's a huge thing with spiritual gifts. So that's a 6-week course starting at the end of May, and you can find all of that on Three Rays of Light. And I have a website, and I'm also very active on Facebook on my Three Rays of Light.
Wonderful. And so so they can listen to your podcast through Belle Book and Candle. And is there a website for that as well? Or does it just go through Facebook?
And you can listen to it on so many different your favorite podcast platform.
Okay. Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on. You have given us a lot of great information. We've got a lot of great comments over here. And if people are interested in speaking with you, what's the best way to reach out to you?
You can message me on Facebook. I answer my messages pretty quickly, or you can email me 3raysoflight, that's a number 3, @gmail.com.
Okay. And we'll put that on there as well, if you're all right with that.
Yes.
So again, thank you so much for coming on. And I would like to thank all of the folks who were over in the live chat. You guys kept us hopping with some great questions and comments. And I'm just going to have you back on at some point.
I would love it. Thank you.
Some of these other topics. It just, it's really nice to see someone that has such a positive light and positive aura. I saw several comments talking about just the light you bring and the positivity. I saw 4 or 5 comments about that. And so that's very nice. And it's actually very calming. So
I have been told that I am a very peaceful person.
and that is a wonderful attribute to have. So, but again, thank you everybody for asking the questions and coming on. A few things coming up this episode. It will rebroadcast on the Ghost Biker Explorations YouTube channel, and then again on Saturday night on Mix TV. Got a great show coming up next Thursday night, and something a little different and kind of special. I'm going to actually have the band Mother Legacy on. Shay Collins, she has some great stories to share about some of her experiences, and I have actually worked with Shay with her and her husband Steve on several different occasions. Some of the Harley Davidson events that I do, she has actually been my band that has performed during our meet and greets. So they're going to come on, tell their story, and they're going to actually perform some songs for us at the end of the podcast. So check out their music, and they're actually she's taking some of my requests. So if any of you guys know them and have a special request, if you like soulful music, then they're the band for you. So they're going to be on next Thursday night in the Ghost Biker Garage. And this coming Saturday night, I'm going to be on the Insane Asylum special 100th episode show. These guys are out of Wisconsin. They're wonderful. Several folks who were over in the live chat, Beth Allen, Dr. Christy Sumner, Jake Fife, who I've had on my show before, are just a few of the guests that are going to be on that special 100th episode. And then also, I just got it booked, but I'm going to be on the Fog Paranormal Report with Sandra Wells. She was on the show last week. I am actually going to be on her live stream this coming Sunday night at 7 p.m. And if I didn't say it, the show on Saturday night is going to be 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that was kind of a mouthful and a lot of information. And we'll have more information on that as things get closer. So again, thank you all. And, I hope that until we meet again next Thursday night, if not before, I hope that you guys have a blessed week and take care. Bye, guys.